It's the World Cup of World Cups, Episode 10, Germany, 1974.
13th of June 1974. Tom Baker is the new Doctor Who. All the President's Men by Woodward and Bernstein is about to be published, and The Poseidon Adventure is America's #1 film. Meanwhile, in Frankfurt, it's all kicking off.
I think we can just do this, lads. They're not stopping us.
I believe they have a whole day of training for all young players, which is basically don't steal a rowing boat.
I'm on a Facebook page which is all about pictures of goal nets. Very accurate.
When asked, did you play with Pele, he would reply, no, Pele played with me.
That's an autobiography title if I ever heard one. That is good.
What a wonderful thing to say. Because he could have said, 18 years and I'm only remembered for that.
Certain places the bar just is lower, isn't it?
What are you wearing? A Bayern Munich kit. I'm World Beckenbauer.
My World Cup winners medal. What are you wearing?
Hallo und willkommen zur Weltmeisterschaft der Weltmeisterschaften, Folge 10, Deutschland 1974. Mein Name ist Jakob Koch und ich werde wie immer von Paul Wild begleitet. Hallo Paul, wie geht's?
Sehr gut, danke schön.
Yeah, we are in Germany, West Germany, for the 1974 World Cup. They won the right to host uncontested after they did a deal with the Spanish.
The deals between Germany and Spanish during the 20th century were absolutely fine, generally. Oh, what? We don't contest this at all? Oh, this is fine. Yeah, sure.
He's doing the accent, okay?
Yeah.
We'll do the whole podcast like this, shall we?
Yes.
I think I should go for this accent.
That one's not all right. As you've heard, also joining us on the World Cup of World Cups is a comedian, actor and author who you can see at comedy clubs all around the UK and whose books have sold over 700,000 copies worldwide. He supports Watford and Hemel Hempstead Town and he's been arrested on suspicion of terrorism. It's Eddy Brimson.
Those three things aren't connected, by the way.
You sell one more book and you're going away.
Thank you for joining us, Eddy. What is it about the 1974 World Cup that appeals to you?
Well, there's so many things. I'll give you a bit of background. At the time, I was 10. It's the first World Cup I can remember properly. And I just got football mad. The first real football I remember is 1971 Cup final. And I was obsessed with football. But the thing about 74 is really Holland and Johan Cruyff. That was the moment that football didn't just become a game, it became something beautiful. Johan Cruyff taught me that football could actually be beautiful, and that's when I fell in love with football.
The first World Cup that you remember fully does seem to be like it seeps into you and you're like, well, that one was the best one because I was 10. Well, yes, obviously this music was the best. When I was 18 and going to bars, that was obviously when pop music peaked, and the best World Cup was when you were 10.
Well, it's not just, there's so much about that World Cup. If you look back on it, it's the football, the style of football, particularly the Dutch played, and then you had Haiti and you had Zaire in there, and no one had really seen anything like that, and it was an incredible World Cup for so many reasons. Groundbreaking in a lot of ways.
Watching the footage, it's also quite evocative of a time I wasn't born, but there was just sort of like of watching football clips and going, oh, it's got the big bit behind the goal because it's on a running track.
And the goal nets. The goals are just beautiful. The goals these days are just dull. I'm on a Facebook page which is all about pictures of goal nets. Very accurate. Honestly,
we've started early this week.
Once you start, you don't stop. It's fascinating.
Eddy, which kit from the 1974 World Cup would you be wearing in your football sticker?
He's got the Germany green away kit is very, very special. But the Dutch second kit with the white with the orange trim, just beautiful.
So you want to be Holland away?
I'll be Holland away. Yeah, I'll be Holland away. Not that I would ever wear another shirt from another team or another nation. I would never do.
Oh, no.
Does it bother you when people wear kits of teams they don't support.
Yes, yeah, it really, really does bother me. When I see people, I used to live in Scotland, and you'd see more people walking around in Argentina shirts in Scotland than you will see walking around in Scotland shirts.
Before we get into 1974, I've got to give the answer to the teaser from the end of the last episode, when we talk about 1970, where Jorginho and Cubalas both scored in every game their nation played in. That's only happened once since 1970, and I asked, who did it and in what World Cup?
Oh, it's going to be someone Bulgarian, isn't it? Is it?
No, it's not. It was in 2014, and it was James Rodriguez for Colombia.
Oh.
Scored in 5 games out of 5, and then they got beat by Brazil. Another teaser coming up at the end of this episode. So, qualifying for 1974, we've got 90 teams trying to cram into 14 spaces. But Africa and Asia/Oceania are guaranteed 1 space each, as are CONCACAF, who decide to use the CONCACAF Championships of 1973 as qualifying. All the games in that are played in Port-au-Prince, and wouldn't you know, Haiti qualified.
Currently, at that point, Haiti were ruled by a horrible dictator called Papadop,
Duvalier,
who's actually a doctor. And then they all just went, for some reason, we want you to go through.
Yes, I'm sure that had nothing to do with the fact that Trinidad and Tobago had 4 goals disallowed in the deciding match. In European qualifying, Europe have only 8 places, as well as West Germany as hosts. So how many groups do they divide the European teams into?
8.
9. It's 9. They divide into 9 groups. And they say whoever wins Group 9 will have to go and play one of the South American teams to qualify. Oh. We are 3 English men, so we should talk a little bit about England not qualifying for 1974. And it all comes down to a game against Poland at Wembley that is a draw 1-1.
A decent side. Shilton in goal, Colin Bell, Martin Peters, Emlyn Hughes, like Norman Hunter. There's decent players in it. And their unused subs are Bobby Moore and Kevin Keegan.
Yeah, I remember watching that. Keeper just played a blinder. We should have won it. It's just one of them games. Our name weren't on it.
Tomaszewski, the Polish goalkeeper, who's going to feature in this World Cup quite heavily. And, of course, Brian Clough said he was a clown.
That other clown at the other end was.
Brian, you keep calling him a clown, but in fact, that fellow has made some fantastic saves, and he's kept England back.
We had so many chances in that game, though. It was just one of those, it's not going to go in.
The big consequence of that game was that Alf Ramsey was then sacked. In the same group, Wales did beat Poland and they drew at Wembley, but they lost their other games, so they were out as well. Northern Ireland were knocked out by Bulgaria, but Scotland qualify.
Congratulations. Who were in their group?
They were in a 3-team group with Czechoslovakia and Denmark.
Oh, wow. They take that now, won't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Their squad included Jimmy Jinky Johnston, nicknamed the Flying Flea, one of the Lisbon Lions. He loved a bit of alliteration. Voted Celtic's greatest ever player. There's a statue of him outside Celtic Park. It was described as a genius who lived by magic and mischief. Now, he goes to the World Cup, but he doesn't play any of the games. But what's significant about him is they play a warm-up game with England before the World Cup. And before that game, Johnson and a few of the other players decide to go out drinking in Largs. And they get it into their heads that what would be a really good idea is if they stole a rowing boat and then took it out to sea. So Jimmy Johnson gets in the rowing boat, rows out to sea, and he's taken out to sea by the tide, and the Coast Guard have to be called in to rescue him.
No way.
He did actually steal a rowing boat, not it was a Colombian hotel said he stole a rowing boat.
No, he actually did steal one. Years later, Sarah Fabergé of the Fabergé egg people crafted 19 Fabergé eggs in his honour.
How?
I think she was a big Celtic fan, I think. They're not official Fabergé eggs, but they were eggs created by a member of the Fabergé family.
I thought you were going to say she created a Fabergé egg and then put it in a Fabergé rowing boat and then just...
See, you miss things like that, though, don't you? You miss players like that who go and do stupid stuff.
The media training would have kicked in now, wouldn't it? Of just being like, I won't do that. It'll affect my brand quality with,
Or just go out on a yacht.
Yeah. I don't need to steal a rowing boat when I can be on an oligarch's super yacht.
I believe they have a whole day of training for all young players, which is basically don't steal a rowing boat. Not to be outdone by England's 1970 effort, Scotland released an entire album of songs, which includes a cover of Back Home.
Does it change the lyrics to "You're Still Back Home"?
They change it to Back Hame. is Scottish for back home. It has got cameos from actual pop stars on it, unlike the England album of 1970. So Rod Stewart and Dennis Lord duet.
Oh, my sweet angel. Tomorrow I'm gonna be by your side.
And of course, they've got their breakout single Easy Easy, which gets to number 20 in the UK singles chart. Elsewhere in European qualifying, Belgium have a late winner incorrectly disallowed for offside against the Netherlands, which mean the Dutch qualify on goal difference. So had VAR existed, there would be no Dutch at the 1974 World Cup.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Hey, and would my life have been different?
Maybe you'd be here waxing lyrical about the Belgians.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe you just wouldn't be into football at all, and you'd be like, I've led a sensible, different life, working as a chartered accountant somewhere in Hemel Hempstead.
Maybe you just really got into chocolates and Tintin.
Yeah.
The final place of the 1974 World Cup comes down to a playoff between the winners of European Group 9, the Soviet Union, and Chile. Paul, I believe you've been looking into this.
Yes, so the situation was that Chile had qualified in third, I think, and said, oh, yeah, you have to go for a playoff. And in between that time, the socialist democratically elected president of Chile got into a couple of arguments with the military, and they did a coup and hold the president up in the palace. And then he apparently committed suicide with an AK-47, which wouldn't be my gun of choice to commit suicide with. And they went, oh, yeah, we found him. He committed suicide. About 2 minutes after we'd sent smoke bombs in and started shooting at him.
I can imagine that would make you feel very depressed.
Yeah. So the right-wing military takeover as a junta put in Thatcher's friend, General Pinochet, and then they send lots of left-wing demonstrators to the Stadio Nacional to be disappeared, basically. And
where the 1962 World Cup final had been.
Yeah, so they've got this stadium now full of dead left-wingers, and the Soviet Union go, well, can we play somewhere else that's, not haunted? And FIFA refused. They don't even want to have the game called off. They don't want to have it moved to a neutral country. They just want to play literally anywhere else in Chile. And FIFA like, no, play around these corpses. So Soviet Union refuse, and the whistle kicks off. The Chileans run past an empty pitch to put it into the net, and they win the playoff because the Soviets didn't even turn up.
Bad move from the Soviets, because the tactics would have been really easy to work out, because I take it that Chile would have been playing down the right wing because they've got no left wingers.
So the first leg in Moscow that finished 0-0, the Soviet Union didn't recognise the new Chilean government, and Chile weren't going to send a team, but they did eventually. The players had been reminded not to make any political statements and that their families were being closely monitored.
Jesus.
Yeah, and before the second leg, FIFA had actually sent a delegation to inspect the stadium, and they look around the pitch and go, the pitch is fine, conveniently forgetting the fact that all of the facilities there are being used as an internment and execution camp for tens of thousands of political prisoners. Incredibly, for the 5 seconds of football, 15,000 fans showed up to watch the game.
Even to this day, FIFA don't seem to have a problem with people dying just to make a stadium ready, do they?
This is a recurring theme.
So we say hello to Australia, East Germany, Haiti, and Zaire, who are the first sub-Saharan team to qualify for a World Cup. We shall also say goodbye to East Germany, Haiti, and Zaire. This is the only time they qualify. We say welcome back to the Netherlands and Poland, the first time they qualified since the Second World War, and Scotland, the first time since 1958. Notable absentees, England, as we've mentioned, France, Spain. This is the last time Spain failed to qualify for the World Cup. The Soviet Union, and Mexico, our old friends Mexico, who, despite beating Haiti, lose to Trinidad and Tobago in qualifying. There's a new format.
It's stupid.
It
I'm going to
is.
say.
World
It's
Cup
a
format number 6. 4 groups of 4 with the top 2 qualifying, but not to a knockout, to more groups.
It's groups all the way down.
It's
And
a
then-
really weird format, this one, isn't it?
The winner of those 2 groups play in the final, and the group runners-up play in the third place playoff. So there's only 2 knockout games, and one of them is the third place playoff. And if either of those knockout games were draws after extra time, there would have been penalty shootouts.
That's a first,
Is
isn't
that
it?
would have been a first?
It's the first time that penalties are on the table. We don't have a penalty shootout for another 8 years.
Yep.
But it's the first time they're a possibility, as opposed to drawing lots, which is what has been the decider up till now.
That's incredible. I'd have probably had that for every Watford game last year before kick-off.
A 50-50 chance? I'll
Just took
fucking
that,
take
just flick a
it.
coin, we'll see what happens. What is it?
The World Cup draw is done by Detlef Lang, an 11-year-old boy and member of the Schöneberger Sangenarben Choir, who release a single with Detlef on lead vocals called Mit etwas Taktik, mit etwas Glück, holen wir den Weltmeister zurück. That's the title. It's one of the few songs where the title is longer than the lyrics. And that translates as, with a bit of tactics, with a bit of luck, we'll bring the World Cup back.
Etwas Taktik, mit etwas Glück, holen wir den Weltmeister zurück.
All together now.
The seeded teams in the draw are the final 4 from 1970, and then they're split geographically. You've got Western Europe, Eastern Europe, South America, and rest of the world, which features Australia, Zaire, Haiti, and for some reason, Sweden.
You're not Western Europe, you're not Eastern Europe, you're a bit Northern Europe, you're rest of the world.
Yes, Sweden. You're not European anymore. The opening match is in Group 2 and features Brazil, the exciting holders from 1970, against Yugoslavia. Yes, it's Brazil versus Yugoslavia again for like the 5th time. Brazil have only got 3 players from the 1970 final, Piazza, Jairzinho and Rivellino. And it is an opening game, which means it finishes 0-0.
Did they really only have 3 players from the 70s?
Pele had retired from internationals in 1971. Tostão had detached his retina and was training to become a doctor. Gerson injured himself a few months before and was out, as did Clodoaldo. I think they would have played. The other teams in that group are Scotland and AFCON holders Zaire, and they play in the other game. And Scotland scored twice in the first 35 minutes against Zaire, and then decide to spend the rest of the game just sort of knocking it about in midfield, because that is not going to come back to haunt them at all.
No. No.
Was it inherently cruel to batter Zaire, did they think?
It's just so Scottish, isn't it? It's such a Scottish thing to do.
We'll hold on to that. We've got
We
those
got,
two.
we got the 3 points. No one else is going to beat them.
The Scottish goals, Peter Lorimer's volley is
It's a
pretty
big
special.
beating.
Oh, that.
He's Leeds' his top scorer, but he only ever scored 4 goals for Scotland, and he'd been banned for a while for playing for Cape Town on loan in 1971.
What, because of apartheid?
Yeah, that would be that.
Joe Jordan gets the other with an uncontested header that goes through the goalkeeper. I mean, literally goes through him.
But that goalkeeper was some goalkeeper, wasn't he? I mean, he'd have done well in the Scottish squad, to be fair.
That game is also significant because it is the last Scotland appearance of Dennis Law, nicknamed the Lawman or Dennis the Menace. He's the only Scottish player to win the Ballon d'Or. He is the joint top scorer in Scottish international football history. He survived a car flip in 1962.
Wow.
Do you know which famous footballer is named after Dennis Law?
Dennis Wise.
Nope. I'm sitting here thinking there aren't that many footballers called Dennis.
Is
Surely
it
you'll
going to be
get it.
something mad like Eden Hazard? And
No,
Eden is
no.
is short for Dennis somehow.
No, it's not a trick question. This player is called Dennis.
Would it be Dennis?
You have to give a surname. You can't just say Dennis.
Oh, there's just a Brazilian called Dennis.
Yeah, just a Brazilian called Dennis.
There might be, actually. Come on, really famous footballer called Dennis. Eddie, which national team has turned you onto football?
Oh, Holland. I can't think of his surname.
He goes on to score one of the best goals in World Cup history. Dennis Bergkamp.
Oh!
no,
kidding.
no. That's appalling.
Yeah.
It is named after Dennis Law. Now, The more astute of you will have realised that it's spelt differently.
Yeah.
Dennis Law only has one N, Dennis Bergkamp has two N's. And this is because the Dutch officials wouldn't let Dennis Bergkamp's parents call him Dennis with one N because they said it was too much like Denise.
I thought you were going to say it's too much like penis.
Would you like a story about Dennis Bergkamp?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Where I used to live in Barnet, my friends are builders, and a lot of the Arsenal footballers live in this place just north of Barnet. And he was working on a house next door to Dennis Bergkamp's. And Bergkamp came running out one day, and my mate's friend goes, "Dennis, is it possible? My dad's in hospital. He's a big Arsenal fan. Could you give an autograph?" And Dennis Bergkamp went, "Listen, I'm in a real hurry, lads, because I'm late for training, and Wenger goes mental if you're late, and I'm already late." So he just thought he'd fobbed him off. So they're working in on the house later that afternoon, and Dennis Bergkamp came round, knocked on the door, called him out, and he goes, "I'm really sorry, genuinely was late for training, but here's a signed shirt from the whole of the team. Give that to your dad and say I hope he gets better soon."
Oh,
Top man, eh? Yeah.
Top bloke. So, yes, Scotland have won 2-0 against Zaire. Yugoslavia do slightly better. They beat Zaire 9-0.
if you're a fan of a 30-yard strike, there's a couple of those in there, purely because I think they went, I think we can just do this, lads. They're not stopping us. You can just knock it around on the edge of the area and one of you have a punt and it'll probably go in the top corner. It's great.
Keeper had a bad day, though, didn't he?
Zaire actually used two goalkeepers in this game. Kazadi Mwamba, who was voted goalkeeper of the tournament at AFCON earlier in 1974, he was taken off after 21 minutes at 3-0 down. Because they thought, well, he's not having a very good game and it's 3-0 down, so we'll take him off and we'll put on our other goalkeeper, which is the first non-injury goalkeeper substitution in World Cup history, and the other goalkeeper concedes 6. Zaire also managed by a Yugoslavian, which must have hurt. Badjovic of Yugoslavia scores a hat-trick. There are 7 goal scorers for Yugoslavia in this game, which is a World Cup record.
Is that first?
Yeah, yes. Oh, yeah, it is the first. See, everyone wants the bell, don't they? Including Dragan Zajic, who was nicknamed the Magic Dragan.
We don't have nicknames anymore, do we? The players don't really have nicknames. Everyone, some brilliant nicknames here.
There was Vladislav Bugajevic, who was nicknamed Bogey. The Zairians had Ndai Mulamba, nicknamed Volvo. I don't know why.
He was very reliable, but just sort of unattractive and boxy. And was, all right, okay.
He was also sent off at 4-0 down. Years later, he was awarded the National Order of the Leopard by President Mobutu.
Where do you find this stuff out from?
Research, mate. Take it seriously. He said that the Zairians were promised a $45,000 bonus for qualifying for the World Cup, and they never got it. In 1994, he was shot in the leg by robbers.
Ooh.
And during the Civil War, he fled to South Africa as a refugee. In 1998, a minute's silence was held at the AFCON in Burkina Faso after it was reported that he died in a diamond mining accident. He hadn't. He was still alive. He actually died in January 2019. He's one of the few people to have been there for his own minute silence.
But also, how specific he was killed in a diamond mining accident. And you're like,
Wow.
Zaire also featured Bwanga Chemen, their defender, who was known as the Black Beckenbauer, and Mavuba Mafuila, who was known as the Black Sorcerer, and whose son, Rio Mavuba, played for France at the 2014 World Cup. Yugoslavia featured Vladimir Petrovic. He was the youngest player at this World Cup, aged 18, nicknamed Pison, which means pigeon. He'd go on to play 13 games for Arsenal in the early 80s. Drazen Muzinic signed for Norwich in 1980. John Bonds, the Norwich manager, admitted he'd never actually seen him play. and Justin Fashanu said, I don't think we got Muzinic. I think they sent his milkman. Luka Peruzovic, the defender, whose older brother is Nikolai Volkov, the WWE wrestler, who won the inaugural WWF tag team event at WrestleMania with the Iron Sheik.
The Iron Sheik? Is he from Saudi Arabia?
the Iron Sheik probably comes from like West Virginia, and they're just knowing wrestling. It would have just been.
You're a bit tan. Put this tea towel on. And their forward, Stanislav Karasi, whose dad is wanted for war crimes.
Oh, bloody hell. That is quite the Yugoslav team.
Yeah. It's quite a lineup, that.
Meanwhile, Brazil are playing out another goalless draw for boring Brazil. This time against Scotland, where Scotland played really well and should have won.
They had a really good side that year.
I know it's a long time ago, but when you look at the Scotland teams back then and the type of player they were producing to what's happened to Scottish football now, it's incredible to see the demise of it. They did have world-class players. They were churning world-class players out.
Billy Bremner, who was captaining the team, he misses from like 2 yards out against Brazil. He was described by the Sunday Times as being 10 stone of barbed wire.
That's an autobiography title if I ever heard one. That is good.
He was banned for 11 games, once for fighting with Kevin Keegan at the Charity Shield.
Which is a friendly, isn't it? That was the damned United period of Brian Clough, wasn't it?
Yeah, would have been after. Because Revy left, didn't he, to take over England?
Yes, of course, in the damned United, he's played by Stephen Graham. Do you know why Billy Bremner was banned for playing for Scotland for life in 1975?
Was it accepting money from English people for adverts?
He had a three lines tattoo.
No, fighting in a nightclub.
Oh, come on. That's the most Scottish thing you can do.
Wow. Stephen Gerrard wouldn't have lasted long enough there, would he?
What was it he wanted Phil Collins putting on?
That lead side with Bremner and Lorimer are just incredible side.
And a lot of them are in the Scotland squad.
Yeah, brilliant side. When I was a kid, that was the side that, when I first really got into football with 71, Leeds were the team that I followed until I was actually able to go and start watching football. And
that's quite a common thing if you read people's autobiographies of growing up in the 70s, of wherever you were in the country, there were just a bunch of Leeds fans and probably should have won the European Cup due to dodgy decisions in the final.
Possibly the only time I have ever cried watching a football match with Leeds lost to Bayern Munich. It taught me to grow up.
I'm not laughing at your pain, Eddie.
Sorry, Eddie, I just have to... First time Eddie cried at a football game.
And only.
Hello, I'm Paul Savage. As well as being the co-host of the World Cup of World Cups, I am a stand-up comedian. I'm doing a show called Well Groomed at the Canonsgate during the month of August, from the 6th to the 28th, not the 17th, at 4:30 every day. A fun, silly show about trauma. And I am also a cartoonist. I have a book called But Doctor. I am a collection of comic strips by Paul Savage, and it is available through my website, savagecomic.com, along with mugs, stickers, postcards, and other fun stuff. Please check those out.
Well, all of this means that going into the final round of games in this group, Brazil need to beat Zaire by 3 to definitely go through. And they do, but the third from Valdemiro comes with 11 minutes to go. And again, it's a goalkeeping error. He squeezes it through the goalkeeper at the near post. Because the other game between Scotland and Yugoslavia finishes 1-1, had that goalkeeper actually saved the incredibly savable shot and that game finished 2-0, Scotland would have gone through on goals scored.
Oh.
They've only conceded 1 goal and they're unbeaten, but Scotland become the first team to be eliminated from a World Cup without losing a game.
And they got like a win and 2 draws
in that group.
Yeah. Like, I honestly think a draw against Brazil is worth more. That should be. You drew against Brazil. They're the world champions. You should get more points for that. So Yugoslavia took the other place, did they?
Yes, they
won
did.
the group.
Against Brazil, by the way, Mwepo Ilunga, the Zairean defender, charges a free kick.
Yeah, it's great.
One of the iconic World Cup moments, without any shadow of a doubt. Incredible.
Well, what on earth did he do that for?
Now, it's always used as an example of sort of African football naivety, but Ilunga claimed he was trying to get sent off as a protest against the Zairean FA, who were withholding payments to the players. It just feels like if you were trying to get sent off, there is other stuff you could do.
Yeah.
You could pick the ball up and just run around with it.
It is very funny.
I remember watching that game and watching that actually happen. and everybody was. I was sitting in the front room with my brothers and my dad, and we watched it. It's just could not believe that had happened. They don't even understand the rules. This is crazy. They're at a World Cup and they don't get the rules.
And they'd
Bizarre.
won the African Cup of Nations that year.
Yeah.
Other players in the Scotland squad, David Harvey, the goalkeeper, who was born actually in Leeds, but he had a Scottish dad. He has the quintessential post-football career. He became a publican and then a postman in the Orkney Isles. That's what they used to do to footballers.
He was a brilliant keeper, David Harvey.
That's Sandy Jardine, whose actual name was William. They called him Sandy because he had sandy-coloured hair. Voted the best right-back of the World Cup. They had Danny McGrain at left-back, who lost 2 stone during the tournament and was constantly thirsty. Turned out he had diabetes.
Weird thing about diabetes that I found out recently. This is tangential even for us. But basically, because your kidneys can't deal with the sugar, your sugar is in your pee, and so you can brew beer from diabetics' piss. You can. If you put
This beer tastes like piss.
yeah, and that is the secret recipe for carling.
Very, very good. Very good.
Paul, this sounds so much like the beginning of one of your get-rich-quick schemes. Guys, I've got an idea.
Yes. All they need to do is just find enough diabetics.
Yeah.
Danny McGrain played 439 games for Celtic, despite being Protestant.
Oh.
In 1996, the band Big Wednesday wrote a song about him called Sliding In Like McGrain that I really like.
Splashing puddles of rain, sliding in like McGrain.
He's not even the only player in this Scotland squad with a song about him. Willie Morgan, the winger, the band TriStar Airbus wrote a song about him called Willie Morgan on the Wing.
TriStar Airbus, what a name.
Yeah. Proper
What a
70s band name.
That is proper 70s.
Very much the opposite of David Harvey's post-football career was Peter Cormack. He was an unused squad player, but he would go on to manage Botswana and then go into the karaoke business. Also in the squad was Tommy Hutchinson, nicknamed Mr. Magic. What was significant about Tommy Hutchinson? What did he do? What was his big achievement in football?
Was it actually magic?
No.
Oh.
Well, 50% of it was. At the 1981 Cup final,
Own goal?
yeah, he scored at both ends.
That's it.
Ah.
He scored for Man City and then he scored an own goal, which meant it was a 1-1 draw and had to go to a replay. Group 1 features the hosts, West Germany, their next-door neighbours, East Germany, Chile and Australia. West Germany beat Chile in West Berlin with a Paul Breitner thunder bastard.
It's a great goal. He puts everything behind it. It's great.
Paul, have you gotten over your infatuation with Paul Breitner's eyes yet?
He's so pretty.
Bright eyes, burning like fire.
And there's a big first in this game. Carlos Caselli of Chile, nicknamed Rey del Metro Cuadrado, King of the Square Metre. He becomes the first player to be shown a red card at a World Cup.
I didn't realise they come in that early. 74 is when they introduced the cards.
No, 70 they introduced them, but no one got sent off in 1970. So
Oh, wow.
against Australia, Overath scores a brilliant goal from outside the box and West Germany win 3-0. The East Germans beat Australia 2-0, which includes a comedy own goal from Cole Curran. The ball is trickling towards the goal line and it's, touch and go whether it would actually have the momentum to cross it over. But Cole Curran runs in and tries to blast it, but gets it completely wrong and just scores.
Yeah, I had to watch that twice because I was like, oh, that's a pretty decent finish. Oh, he did not mean to do that.
Also in that game, the Australian forward, Adrian Alston, does a Cruyff turn 5 days before Johan Cruyff does the Cruyff turn.
No way.
There are some differences, though. Immediately after he does it, the East German defender just kicks him. like, no, you didn't. You didn't do that. Down you go. I believe in later years was quite miffed that he never got the credit.
Well, you would be.
But both of them 14 years after Martinez did it against Wolves for Barcelona. Then East Germany draw with Chile. Then in the First and only ever meeting between the two Germanys, East Germany surprisingly win 1-0.
Hey!
That was massive at the time because West Germany were supposed to stroll that game. So it was an absolute massive turn. And maybe, I think, I've just thought about this morning. It's probably the first time I realised I was a lefty because I really wanted the East Germans to win. So it must have been the communist side of me coming out, the socialist. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the West Germans were all professionals and the East Germans all had day jobs. Jürgen Sparwasser scores the only goal with about 12 minutes to go. In 1988, he defects to West Germany and has 1 year before he wouldn't have needed to.
Oh, bad.
Go defect and then be like, well, thanks for that. Can I go back and get my stuff?
Yeah, bad move that.
The East Germans were coached by George Bushner and his son, of course, George W. Bushner.
Is that the only time they ever played each other?
Yes, they played in the Olympics, but that wouldn't have been a full international.
Doesn't matter, does it?
I was going to say they never played friendlies. They probably weren't at the time very friendly.
No. And it was touch and go whether East Germany would
be
come
allowed
to this World Cup after the draw. But they did, because it would be too much hassle not to do. Yes, their coach George Bushner was a Stasi informer.
Oh.
Right, fair enough.
Bernd Branch is the East German sweeper, and of course is what happens when lightning hits a tree.
It's never a real name.
No, Bernd Branch is a player. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Was he nicknamed Charcoal or whatever?
Why?
Burnt Branch.
Oh, okay. No. Peter Ducker, their forward, was nicknamed Schwarzer Peter, which means Black Peter. He wasn't black.
Wow. They're the ones that are help Santa, aren't they? That they're trying to get banned in Holland, where it's
Stuhl Peter, isn't it? Stuhl Peter,
yeah.
Or something like that.
Basically, they're like, oh no, he's helped by the elves. The elves just happen to look like
the black and white minstrels.
Yeah, the racist caricature.
Anyway, all of this means that the East Germans and the West Germans have now both qualified from the group. Hey, you remember in 1954 when West Germany strategically lose to Hungary so they can nobble their best players and figure out how to beat them?
Yeah.
The upshot of the East beating the West here is that the East will go into a final group with Netherlands, Brazil and Argentina, and the West will get Poland, Yugoslavia and Sweden. In the other game, Australia and Chile is a 0-0 draw that's played on a swamp in West Berlin. But Ray Richards of Australia is the first Australian to be sent off at a World Cup. And that's notable because the referee gave him 2 yellows and then had forgotten he'd given him the first yellow. And it was 4 minutes later that the fourth official, Clive Thomas, pointed it out.
Super Clive.
Oh, nice.
This is not the last time that an Australian will have problems with bookings. In the Australian squad, lots of their squad were born in the UK. Their captain, Peter Wilson, nicknamed Big Willie, played for Safeway United.
Was it really the club team of the supermarket?
I don't know. They're not called that anymore, and I can't find out.
Big Derby with
the Quick Save Derby.
The Wimpy.
He now lives as a recluse near Wollongong.
Big Willie lives near Wollongong.
Yeah. And Johnny Warren, who was very much the star player of the Australian team, he was nicknamed Captain Socceroo, despite not being the captain. In fact, the award for the best player in the Australian League is called the Johnny Warren Medal. Content warning. All right, I'm reporting here. He once wrote a book called Sheila's Wogs and Pufters.
Oh dear me!
Wow! Wow! There's an Edinburgh title.
Total sellout at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
Wow!
But it's probably not what you think. It was actually about sexism, racism, and homophobia towards football in Australia.
Oh, okay.
So he was highlighting the issues.
You've got to get on radio to explain that, whether you're going to get the book in. Although, to be fair, the W word in Australia means something entirely different in Australia.
Oh, yeah. It's sort of...
it's Greek people, Cypriot people, and there are comedy shows in Australia there's one called Wogorama. Yeah.
Jaw dropped to see that on a poster.
Johnny Warren died a year before Australia qualified for the next World Cup in 2006. He was a big proponent of soccer in Australia. He always thought Australia should be doing better at it. And when they did qualify, the commentator on Australian TV shouted, "Johnny Warren, they've done it."
Ah,
Moving into Group 3, we've got the Copa holders, Uruguay, Sweden, Bulgaria, and the Netherlands, who are very much the kingfishers catching the sunlight. They win the group, playing almost total football. Against Sweden, Johan Cruyff has a turn.
There was an opponent there and you had to outplay him. So that was the easiest way, so you just do it.
That game finishes 0-0.
so the best thing that came out of that game was the turn, and everyone went, amazing. What did it lead to? Absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all.
Yeah, but I remember watching that and actually standing up out of my chair. I saw that and I stood up. I was like, what did I just see? Sitting there with my brothers and my dad. It was an incredible moment in my, not just in my footballing life, but in my life, because football is such a big part of my life. That was a real pivotal moment when that happened. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Do you know who Jan Olsen is?
Is that the one who turned?
He is. Yes, the Swedish defender, the victim of the turn. He once said, "I played 18 years in top football and 17 times for Sweden, but that moment against Cruyff was the proudest moment of my career. I thought I'd win the ball for sure, but he tricked me. I was not humiliated. I had no chance. Cruyff was a genius."
What a wonderful thing to say. Because he could have said, 18 years and I'm only remembered for that. But what an acknowledgement. Fair play to that man.
It is the most Swedish response I've ever heard.
Someone else who's like that, the guy who's in goal for Wimbledon when David Beckham chips him from a halfway line, Neil Sullivan, he says, I like watching that clip because it makes it, every time it's shown, people are like, oh, you must get sick of that. He's like, no, people then remember I played football at the top level.
And Beckham saw Sullivan off his line. Oh! That is absolutely phenomenal.
You'd rather be like that than like Peter Shilton is over the hand of God, wouldn't you? Because he's the most bitter man in the world over that. It's ruined his life. I would imagine he thinks about that 20 times a day.
When he was outjumped by 5'7" Diego Maradona. Yeah. The Dutch win that group quite easily. The second qualifying spot comes down to the last game, which is Sweden versus Uruguay. Sweden haven't scored for 2.5 games, but they get 3 in the second half here and knock out Uruguay, including Ralph Edström, who knocks it up and volleys it in. The Uruguay squad contains Pablo Forlan, who's Diego Forlan's dad, Julia Montero Castillo, who's Paula Montero's dad, Fernando Morena, the striker, who's nicknamed Potrillo, the young stallion.
I wonder how he got that nickname.
Their left-back, Ricardo Pavoni, was going to quit football in 1965 to become a croupier. Luis Garisto of Uruguay, nicknamed El Loco. What does that mean, Paul?
Yeah, the crazy one.
In a friendly before the World Cup, he punched Ray Bartz of Australia in the throat, and Bartz had to retire as a result. Missed the World Cup with a damaged carotid artery.
Oh, bloody hell.
But Garisto, yeah, he's fine. He can be in the squad.
Was he Uruguayan? That?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're always
they do have quite a dirty side for quite a long time.
Slightly nicer Bulgarian squad, even though they're out. They're coached by Hristo Mladenov. You don't have to be Mladenov to coach Bulgaria, but it helps. Their midfielder Dimitar Penic, playing in his third World Cup, he would manage Bulgaria in 1994 when they were good. He's also the honorary life president of Nottingham United FC.
Of who
I think they might be defunct now. I can't find any.
I've never heard of them. I'd have gone to see them. You know me. I like hunting out a club like that. I'd have gone and watched them.
They have Hristo Bonev, who scores against Uruguay. He's Bulgaria's all-time top scorer with 48 goals. He briefly came out of retirement in 1982 to play for Oxford United.
I must have seen him play. 82, there was probably going a lot of football back then.
He'd managed Bulgaria in 98. Also, their forward, Kirill Milanov, who in the 1976 European Cup Winners' Cup, when Levski Sofia beat Lahden Reipas of Finland 19-3 on aggregate, he scored 10 of the goals, wow. Which is still a record. The final group features Argentina, Italy, Haiti, and the Olympic champions Poland. Dino Zoff hadn't conceded an international goal for 1,143 minutes when Haiti took a shock lead through Emmanuel Sanon.
Shut up, lads. Do it. Just don't let them through.
Unlike North Korea in 1966, though, Italy do score. They score 3 in the second half. Haiti spend the next day at the zoo.
Why not?
Then their centre-half, Ernst John Joseph, is sent home for doping offences.
And
Is that a first?
very-
Is that
Nope.
a first? Oh,
We had one, didn't we? Didn't we have one last time?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, also, as well, Eddie, we've covered the fact that in 1954 and 1966, a bunch of the West Germans were on speed.
But did they go to the zoo?
Not as far as we know.
So, Jean-Joseph, officials drag him from the Haiti camp in Munich, beat him up, and hold him overnight.
This is not officials from Germany. This is officials from Haiti.
Yeah.
I remember this.
He somehow gets the message out so that the press know that it's happened, so that hopefully then nothing else will happen to him when he returns home. As far as we can tell, nothing does. In later years, he goes on to play in the United States for the Chicago Sting. Playing for Italy in that game was Giorgio Chinaglia, the striker. He didn't score and he was subbed off, and he had a strong verbal reaction to being subbed off. In fact, he goes up to a TV camera and swears down it.
Nice.
And then he trashes the dressing room.
Oh, wow.
Giorgio Chinaglia grew up in Swansea.
All right. Okay. There you go.
He won the West Wales Senior Cup in 1965. He was nicknamed Long John. There's a lot of filthy nicknames. But that was because apparently he resembled John Charles, and he'd come from Wales. He would go on to play for the New York Cosmos, for whom he'd score 193 goals in 213 games.
Wow.
Including 3 winning goals in the the NASL Championship games. When asked, "Did you play with Pele?" he would reply, "No, Pele played with me."
Oh, what a...
I would strongly recommend the documentary. Is it called Once in a Lifetime? About the New York Cosmos in the 70s.
Because they're all just basically, there's Pele and then a bunch of sort of European players and then a load of American college guys just living it up in 70s New York. Because they would literally play like at 100,000 seater stadiums where Pele was playing.
Yeah.
And the rest of the teams were playing like 500 seater stadiums and not filling those. It was like dropping Real Madrid into a bunch of non-league teams.
Putting Real Madrid in the Beezer Holmes League. Chinaglia would go on to be Lazio's president in the 1980s, during which time he once attacked a referee with an umbrella and ended up going to prison for 2 years for fraud.
That is such a Batman villain thing to do. Like, he's attacking with an umbrella. It's got a poison tip.
Poland go 2-up against Argentina after 8 minutes and go on to win 3-2. Their third goal, after a stupid throw-out by Daniel Carnevali, goes straight to Lato, who gets his second of the game.
And it's Lago! He's got the third! Over net!
Poland were quite fancied for this tournament, weren't they?
They were very, very good. They were all out attacking. They kind of very similar to what the Dutch were doing. It was attack. Another thing about this World Cup, it was about attacking football and getting goal. Apart from Scotland, of course, it was about attacking football. It was none of that. What you get now, just don't lose. It was go out there and win. Poland were a very good side. They were unlucky.
They scored 7 against Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
Lato scores twice, and Jersey Gorgon, whose name is Jersey Gorgon.
Has like a cheese, doesn't it?
Yeah, scores a lovely goal. And in that game, Govindasamy Sapaya becomes the first Asian to referee a World Cup match.
Yeah.
Argentina-Italy ends 1-1. René Hausmann scores a brilliant goal, but Roberto Perfumo scores an own goal, which later becomes known as the Perfumo Affair.
Oh, dear. I'm glad I was seated for that one.
In the final round of games, Argentina need to win by at least 3 and hope that Italy lose. So Argentina do their bit. They beat Haiti 4-1. And in that game, first, Fritz and Joseph Leandre are the first brothers to come on as substitutes in the same game at the World Cup. The firsts get more and more obscure the further into the World Cup. But not even a late Fabio Capello consolation can stop Poland beating Italy 2-1, which means Italy are out in the first round again.
Yay.
When it popped up on the highlights of Fabio Capello, I was like, oh, I didn't realise he had such a career.
The Italian squad also featured Pietro Anastasi, who was nicknamed Il Pele Blanco.
The White Pele.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we can probably make a team of Pelés. The Pele of somewhere or the White Pele.
I'm El Baldo Pele. It's me. You know, I constantly check my balls. That's what it is. that's the only link I've got with him.
Tarcisio Bergnic, their defender, is the oldest player at the World Cup at the age 35. He's the only one born before the Second World War. Giuseppe Wilson, their centre-back, his real first name is Joseph and was born in Darlington.
I was going to say Giuseppe Wilson. That's fantastic.
Did he have Italian heritage or was he just popped over?
How do you think it was Harold Wilson's son? Giuseppe Wilson. Go on, lad. Go out there and show us how it's done.
His mother was from Naples and his dad was called Dennis. So his parents met when his dad was serving in the army in Italy. And when he was 6 months old, they moved to Naples. If you look his picture up on the internet, he does look like a northern man uncomfortably in a Lazio shirt.
It really does.
So there was him. And then, oh God, there was Luciano Riccaccioni.
These names are brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah. He was nicknamed L'Angelo Blondo, which means the blonde angel. I mean, of all the deaths, this is...
Oh, no.
What are you doing to yourself?
In January 1977, he was shot dead after pretending to rob a friend's jewellery shop as a practical joke.
Oh!
His last words were, "It's a joke, it's a joke."
And yet, YouTube pranks are still a thing. Like,
that is horrendous.
As a joke, he goes, "I'm going to pretend to rob my friend's shop." And his friend, not realising it was him, shoots him.
That's fantastic.
Oh, mate.
He was 28 and an international footballer.
Oh, dear me.
There you go. There's a lesson there, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's leave comedy to the professionals. That's no one enjoys pranks.
So that's the first round of groups out the way.
On that bombshell.
Hey, have you ever played a board game? You have? Then you'll love my book, 101 Board Games to Play Before You Die. I look at the board games that we've loved, hated and thrown across the room in a fit of rage. I'll tell you which classic games are not worth the time and emotional torment, and which games you should be playing instead, as well as giving you advice on how to make your dinner parties more tolerable and how to pimp your Scrabble. The perfect gift for your nerdy friend, it's available from 101boardgames.com. That's 101boardgames.com. Into the second round of groups. Group A, which is Argentina, Brazil, East Germany and the Netherlands. Brazil and the Netherlands both win their first two games. Brazil narrowly, but the Netherlands by being amazing, including beating Argentina 4-0.
Oh. 2 goals from Cruyff in that game, which were incredible. The second goal, where he's both feet off the air, where he puts the cross comes in and he puts that in, is just sensational bit of football.
Argentina's squad features Carlos Babington, who is nicknamed El Inglese, the Englishman, because his grandfather was English and his great-great-great-great-grandfather was William Babington, who has a statue in St Paul's Cathedral.
Carlos Babington is, again, a player who could not look more English.
He looks like Paul McGann.
He really does.
They also featured left-back Jorge Carrascosa, who was nicknamed El Lobo, the Wolf, and Enrique Wolf, who was not nicknamed the Wolf. Nickname someone after your teammate's surname. Unused squad player Aldo Poi, who was a forward. This is quite the story. I really like this, by the way. On the 19th of December 1971, Aldo Poi scored a diving header in the semi-final of the National Championships for Rosario Central against Newell's Old Boys. Fans meet up every 19th of December to commemorate the goal and recreate it. To this day.
Brilliant.
A group of Rosario Central fans tried to register the diving-headed goal at the Guinness World Records as the most celebrated goal in the history of football, although Guinness have been like, what? The event itself moves around the country and, in fact, the world. In 1997, they did it in Cuba, where the goal was recreated by Che Guevara's son, Ernesto. It has also happened in Chile, Uruguay, and the United States.
What was the player's name? Poi?
Aldo Poi.
Is he nicknamed the Lentil?
It's a goal in a semi-final, and they every year on the anniversary they go and recreate it somewhere. It's amazing.
Because Rosario, that's where Newell's Old Boys is, isn't it? So it would have been the local derby.
Yeah.
God, I'm not rubbing it in, is it?
Yeah.
Also in the squad, forward Hector Yazalde, who was notable because he married Mario de Camo de Deus, who under the pseudonym Britt Nichols appears in such films as Lovers of Devil's Island, A Virgin Among the Living Dead, and The Erotic Rites of Frankenstein.
Oh,
Channel Cinco, about 11 p.m. on a Friday night, those. No, I'm saying that it's like the Channel 5 when we were growing up. The dirty film at 11 p.m. on a Friday. Yeah. Came in very useful before the internet. I'll just say that.
The dirty film. That's not something you hear. What is the dirty film on tonight?
It's an erotic thriller with Shannon Tweed. You're like, yes, please.
My dad's got one of them dirty films. Come.
The thing is, The Erotic Rites of Frankenstein, right? Dracula, I get. There's a sort of sexiness to Dracula. But Frankenstein, there's nothing erotic about Frankenstein. It's a green bloke with a ball through his neck.
Yeah, but we don't know what part he's got or who's got it from.
Anyway, all of this sets up a de facto semi-final in the last group game. It's Brazil versus the Netherlands. A scrappy physical match, which the Netherlands win 2-0. Neeskens with his fourth of the tournament, and Cruyff gets one as well. Luis Pereira is sent off, the first Brazilian to get a red card at a World Cup. And this means the Dutch are in the final for the first time. They're the first-time finalists since England in 1966. And the only goal they've conceded thus far was scored by their own left-back, Rudi Krol. Is this the game you remember?
Yeah, and Cruyff scores late on with a half volley into the bottom corner.
Yes,
Great
yes,
goal.
it does. You're right. Yeah.
I don't really remember Brazil at all in this tournament.
No, they were a bit of a nothing team here. I mean, they finish in the top four, but Rivellino has gone from being, this amazing player to being an amazing player who's also kicking everyone all the time. In the other group, Poland, Sweden, West Germany, Yugoslavia. This time, Poland and West Germany win their first two matches, setting up the decider. Lato gets another 2 goals in the process, and Tomaszewski saves a penalty against Sweden. West Germany beat Sweden 4-2 in a brilliant game, a game which has 3 goals in 3 minutes.
Oh, yes, please.
And another amazing volley from Edstrom.
So the de facto semi-final that's not a semi-final is between
Poland and West Germany.
Little bit of beef.
Yeah, in which Tomaszewski saves another penalty. He is the first goalkeeper to save 2 penalties in 2 different World Cup matches. Yeah, Gerd Muller gets the only goal. That's his 3rd of the tournament, and that equals Just Fontaine's record of 13 goals in World Cups.
Just Fontaine did it in 1 World Cup.
The 3rd place playoff is Poland against Brazil. Lato scores with 15 minutes to go, his 7th of the tournament, so he's the top scorer. He would become a senator in 2001 for the Democratic Left Alliance. He scored 45 goals in 100 games for Poland. Brazil, they only score 6 goals in the whole tournament, and 3 of those are against Zaire. Lavinia, their forward, is Lucas Leiva's uncle. Ademir de Goya is an attacking midfielder. He goes on to be a councilman for Sao Paulo in the noughties for the Communist Party.
Power to the people.
Their left-back, Mourinho Chagas, released a single called Isu Assim, That's the Way I Am. His Wikipedia entry goes to great lengths to assure us he is not related to the serial killer Francisco de Chagas. There's a lot of elected officials.
Yeah. Team of them, team of doctors.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose you get a lot of support, don't you? You take that with you and you think, I could do anything here. People are going to back you, aren't they?
Tomaszewski, the Polish goalkeeper, was elected to the lower house in Poland in 2011 for the Law and Justice Party.
They sound fun.
Vladislav Zamuda would be voted Young Player of the Tournament. He'd go on to play 21 World Cup games across 4 World Cups. And Adam Musial would go on to play for Hereford United. Before the final, German newspapers break a story that the Dutch squad have had a naked pool party at their hotel with some women who aren't their wives.
Oh, was there anything in that, or was it a horrible piece of propaganda?
Oh, was there? Oh, dear.
Yeah. Well, in fact, some of the Dutch players are quite open about it and go, yeah, we were having a nude pool party. It was great. Yeah. This gets some of the players into a bit of trouble with their other halves, particularly Johan Cruyff.
Can't Cruyff turn out of that one, mate.
They're getting very G'd up for this game against West Germany. Willem van Hanegem, the midfielder, nicknamed De Kromme, which means the crooked.
Was that before or after the party?
Weirdly, it straightened quite a bit out.
No, he had that nickname for 2 reasons. 1, he had bandy legs, and 2, he could curve the ball.
Not he'd been taking backhanders.
About the Germans, he said, I don't give a damn as long as we humiliate them. They murdered my father, sister, and 2 brothers. I am full of angst. I hate them.
Wow.
It's only a game, lads.
To be fair, he's got a point.
Willem van Hanegem's son is an internationally renowned trance and house producer. So, what happens at the start of the final?
Handshakes that they don't do?
Nope. Something's missing.
The World Cup?
Nope. Something's missing from the ground, and they have to delay the start.
The ball? The referee?
I can't believe you don't know this. I thought this was well known. It's the corner flags.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Jack Taylor, who is a butcher from Wolverhampton and is refereeing the World Cup final, comes out and goes, there are no corner flags. And the ground staff go, oh, no. And they have to...
one job.
Yeah. You see these fat, middle-aged German men in tracksuits running around, putting these corner flags in the footage. So the game's delayed, and then it kicks off, and then the Dutch pass the ball around for about a minute, and then Cruyff gets the ball, runs into the box. He is tripped by Uli Hoeneß, and Jack Taylor gives the first World Cup final penalty.
The perfect start.
Uli Hoeneß, who gives the penalty away, in 2014 was convicted of tax fraud and served 18 months for not paying 28.5 million euros.
Oh,
wow.
He got that money because he co-owns a bratwurst factory.
Of course he does.
So Taylor gives the penalty. Franz Beckenbauer runs up to him and says, Taylor, you're an Englishman.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Which Taylor says, yes, I am.
Yes, presumably.
I'm a butcher from Wolverhampton.
Can't send him off for stating a fact.
Yeah.
Neeskens takes the penalty. Do you remember this penalty?
Yeah, he puts it in. Straight down the middle.
24 minutes later, Jack Taylor gives another penalty, this time to West Germany, when Wim Janssen, who would later go on to manage Celtic, commits the foul.
What did Taylor get called for giving that one?
Taylor, you're an Englishman, but I like you.
You're an Englishman and a gentleman.
And Paul, your favourite, Paul Breitner.
Bright eyes, burning like fire.
Takes the penalty and scores, and the goalkeeper, Youngblood, just stands there.
Just make a move. You've got to, even if you
just. Yeah,
well, he might have seen the other penalty and thought that's what's going to happen. No, you take your chances, don't you? It's no different to diving in the opposite direction, is it?
Yeah, if you're going to miss it, you do look stupid either way.
So Jack Taylor's now given 2 penalties in the World Cup. They're not having ever been one in the 9 finals previously. Jack Taylor...
Is it the first time there's been 2 penalties?
First time there's 2 penalties. Fine. Jack Taylor was once cut by a penny thrown from the crowd at Luton Town.
I was knocked out by a coin thrown from Plymouth fans that hit me in the eye, knocked me out.
Oh,
carrying around the pitch at Watford. Yeah.
What coin was it?
I think it was a 2p bit. Just flatter me, just totally bang on the floor. I got stretched around the pitch.
I got hit with a coin at when we went to watch football in Chile when I was over there at University Católica. But I hit with like a 5p piece or equivalent. Obviously, they don't have 5p's, but it was just something tiny. You went, oh, that's odd. Are you going to do the Luton Town story, James?
Do you know the story, Savage? Do you know it?
Yeah.
So Eric Morecambe, who's a director at Luton Town, speaks to Jack
about this club.
He speaks to Jack Taylor afterwards and says, "Are you going to report the incident?" And Jack Taylor says, "No, I'm not." And Eric Morecambe says, "Can I have my penny back then?"
Do you know how he became to support that club?
Because he is from Morecambe, isn't he?
No, but they lived in a place called Arpenden, which is halfway between that place and Watford. And him and his son didn't know what team to support. So they flicked a coin and it come out as them. And if it had gone the other way, they'd have gone to Watford.
Hey, you got Elton John. You did all right.
It's a shame this isn't a visual podcast because that was an interesting Facebook.
No, Elton John did brilliant for our football. Did brilliant for Watford.
Now, as we all know, there's a dangerous intoxication in knowing you possess an ability superior to that of all others. Rudy Kroll said, "You can score too early. You start thinking about the result instead of the rest of the game. We thought we were world champions. We woke up too late." Gerd Muller scores just before half-time, breaking Just Fontaine's record, scoring his 14th goal in World Cups. Again, Jan Youngbloed, the goalkeeper, just stands there.
He's just wrong-footed, isn't he? It was a great goal.
But look busy, it's my point. Look like you're doing something.
Just wrong-footed, wasn't he? He didn't see it coming.
And really, their sub-goalkeeper, Eddy Brimson, he should have played, I think, if only because in 1970, he took a goal kick that brought down a gull. Oh, by the way, the gull is in Feyenoord's museum, if you want to find it.
Never been to Feyenoord. Got to go to Feyenoord. Never been there before.
See a gull. See a dead gull.
Yeah. It's
been there for 50 years. The Dutch TV commentator Herman Kuiphoff says they tricked us again. Gerd Muller will quit international football at the age of 29 because the German FA allow officials' wives to attend the gala dinner after the game and not the players' wives.
No, fair play.
So he says, I'm not going to play for you anymore.
Fair play.
It's nice to know that the long history of national teams being weird about officials' wives rather than players' wives isn't just solely to British teams, because there's been loads of that so far on the way up.
In the second half, Set My Ear, it just plays really well, keeps the Dutch out. At one point, Breitner clears it off the line. Johnny Rep Gascoigne's across. You all know what I mean by that, right?
Yeah.
Neeskens blasts the ball at like 1,000 miles an hour straight at Meyer, who saves it. And I've also written here from my notes from watching the highlights, Bertie Votes looks like George from George and Mildred.
Well, better than looking like Mildred.
There's a bunch of players in the German squad who, after this game, have finished first, second and third in a World Cup. Set My Ear, he is known as Die Katze von Ansing, the cat from Ansing.
That's a shit nickname.
Once said, a keeper should give off a sense of calm and not fall asleep while doing so. Good advice. Having said that, he is the first victim of a Panenka in the 1976 Euros. He is the first goalkeeper to wear oversized Mickey Mouse-style gloves.
Huge hands.
Is there a legal limit of how big your gloves can be?
There was all questions about it because he was the first one to, as you just said, but everyone was like, that can't be right. That can't be right.
He once tried to catch a duck during a game.
Because Feyenoord's museum was getting a bit dull.
Yeah. We need something for the museum, something to bring in the kids. How much added time do you think there was at the end of the 1974 World Cup final?
In which West Germany were winning by one goal and at home, I'm going to say 0 seconds.
It's actually much more than that. It's actually 15 seconds.
Oh.
Jack Taylor had to get back to the butcher shop.
Maybe they got to him with his Englishman quote.
So the Netherlands, coached by Rinus Michels, The inventor of total football, although Austria-Hungary, River Plate, Santos and Burnley had all done similar in the past. He was voted FIFA's Coach of the Century.
Whoa. I don't think Burnley have ever been the Dutch side of the 1970s.
They did similar in the 50s. You're thinking of Sean Dyche. I'm talking about 70 years ago.
That Dutch side, it was all about attacking, and it was very, very different the way they approached football.
The final was his 10th game in charge of the Netherlands.
Wow.
And then he stopped managing them until 1988, when he came back to manage them to win the Euros.
I was at that tournament. I was at the semi-final between Holland and Germany in Hamburg.
Yes, which
Nice.
is very much seen as like the revenge game, isn't it?
Yeah, I was at that game.
In Holland. Renus was a practical joker. Luckily, he didn't get shot. He once borrowed a fur coat and pretended to be a woman.
Tuesday in my house.
Second one, once on a fishing trip, he jumped into the water. Hilarious. What a joker.
What a guy.
Certain places, the bar just is lower, isn't it?
The squad included Rene and Willy van der Kerkhoff, who are the first twins to play in a World Cup. And, of course, Johan Cruyff, El Salvador, he was nicknamed. I'm going to manage my time just like Johan Cruyff, sang the Super Furry Animals. He was the world record transfer fee when he joined Barcelona from Ajax for £922,000. He made the number 14 cool. And because I know, Eddie, you're a big fan of his, and I know that, Paul, you like quizzes, I've put together a little quiz about Johan Cruyff, which I'm calling This Is Your Cruyff. Your question first, Eddie. How many times did Johan Cruyff win the Ballon d'Or?
Once.
He won it 3 times.
I was going to go 4.
He also won 3 European Cups with Ajax and was player of the tournament in 1974. In 2004, he was voted the 6th greatest Dutchman, finishing ahead of Rembrandt and Van Gogh. And Rutger Hauer, who finished 92nd.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
And Frank was 8th.
It's a good result for that plucky little teen.
Just think she might have finished even higher if she hadn't had those tap shoes for Christmas.
If only.
Paul, your question. What is Johan Cruyff's first name?
George.
No, it is Hendrik. His name is Hendrik Johannes Cruyff, is his real name. Yeah. Eddie,
yes.
What made Johan Cruyff's kit different from his Dutch teammates?
Did he have his name embroidered into it?
No.
Can I steal?
Do you know, Paul?
It's the whole Puma-Adidas rivalry, and he was sponsored by one of them, so he pulled the badge off the other bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really the answer, but okay, it's more or less right. Basically, he was sponsored by Puma. The Dutch kits were made by Adidas, so every player had 3 stripes going down the arm of the kit, apart from Cruyff, who only had 2.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's very cool. I like that.
Paul, your question. Why didn't he go to the 1978 World Cup?
Just didn't fancy it. Let me give a proper answer. Food poisoning.
No, there'd been an attempted kidnap of his family, so he retired from international football.
Wasn't a prank, was it, by that fella?
Got out of hand.
Some people say that he didn't want to play in a country under a military junta. There was political reasons, but it was family reasons. Eddie, how many fags did he smoke a day until his heart bypass surgery in 1991?
60.
There was only 20.
I genuinely thought it was more than that because I know he was a massive smoker, wasn't he?
He was a smoker. He had the surgery in 1991. In 1996, he had a heart attack, and then he quit club management as a result.
But carried on smoking.
It's me or the fags. I'm going to stick with the fags. Yeah. This football is stressful.
Johan Cruyff was the first Dutch player to do what?
The Cruyff turn.
The answer on my card was be sent off. In his second game for the Netherlands against Czechoslovakia in 1966, he was sent off. Eddie, name the 2 club sides he'd go on to manage.
Barcelona and Ajax.
Correct. For a bonus point, which national team that's not really a national team did he manage?
What, that's not really a national team? Oh,
yeah.
That's got to be something like Palestine or something, isn't it?
Catalonia.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Well, that would make sense as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Totally, for the Barcelona connection. Of course.
And finally, Paul, why did he have to fly home to the Netherlands to register the birth of his son, Geordie?
So that Geordie could play international football should he need to.
No, he qualified through his dad.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because the name Geordie is banned in Spain.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yes.
What's it mean in Spain?
Because he's the patron saint of Catalonia.
Oh, what? So you can't
Can't call your son Geordie. So he had to go to the Netherlands to register the birth and then come back.
He really bought into Catalonia, didn't he?
He also had a number 21 hit in 1969 with the song Oei, 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 dat was meer weer in Louis. Which means, oh, 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 yet another blow. It is about going to see a cousin lose a boxing match, then going with him to the pub where he gets shortchanged, and finally accompanying him home where he is confronted by an angry wife.
It's not about the Dutch party before the cup final.
Yeah. But a naked pool party. Yeah. The West Germans were coached by Helmut Schön, who had fled East Germany in 1950. He had managed Saarland in 1954.
Yes, a weird little country that doesn't exist.
He holds the record for the most World Cup matches as coach, 25, and most wins, 16. The captain was Franz Beckenbauer, Der Kaiser, also known as the White Bwanget Shaman. He is the only defender to win the Ballon d'Or twice. He won 3 European Cups, a Euros. He played 18 World Cup matches and won 15 of them.
Wow.
He would manage Germany in 1986 and 1990. He was investigated for fraud and money laundering in 2016, but the case was closed as the statute of limitations had expired.
They love it. They can't help themselves, can they, football? They cannot help themselves.
What are you getting into after you retire? It's basically pubs or fraud?
Yeah.
At 18, he was banned from the West German youth team for getting his girlfriend pregnant and not marrying her. He was the first player to lift the World Cup trophy.
Oh, right. As a thing to the first time that had ever been done. Everyone just sort of like got a handshake and took it.
No, it's a new trophy in 1974.
The new trophy?
Oh, sure. Right, okay.
He is the only footballer to feature in Monty Python's Philosopher's Football Match sketch.
The Germans playing 4-2-4, Leibniz in goal, back four, Kant, Hegel, Schopenhauer and Schelling, front runners Schlegel, Wittgenstein, Nietzsche and Heidegger, and the midfield duo of Beckenbauer and Jaspers. Beckenbauer, obviously a bit of a surprise there.
It's the Greeks against the German philosophers, and for some reason Franz Beckenbauer is in the German team. And when the whistle goes to start, they all just start thinking. Ignoring the ball. And Beckenbauer's there going, what are you doing? It's not him, it's an actor playing him.
Disappointing.
Because he played number 6 for Germany, he requested the phone number 017 666 6666 because of his shirt number. But he would be plagued by men who thought it was a dirty chat line. Because the German for 6...
Sex.
Oh, of course.
So he just get pervy men ringing up the whole time. What are you wearing? A Bayern Munich kit. I'm Franz Beckenbauer.
My World Cup winners medal. What are you doing?
Also in the German squad, Gunter Netzer. He didn't actually play any games in the World Cup, but he is the first member of a winning squad who didn't play in their home country because he was playing for Real Madrid.
Did he not play at any games in that World Cup?
Oh, no, he played the first 2. Sorry, he played the first 2 games. Also, Jupp Heynckes was in the squad. He would manage Real and Bayern to Champions League wins. He was nicknamed Osram.
Because he had like a light bulb?
Yes.
I was just being mean. That's
brilliant.
That's hilarious.
That's one. Time then now for us to rate the 1974 World Cup to find out where it stands in our World Cup of World Cups. Our league table currently being led by 1966 England with a score of 7.67.
It seemed to work. There wasn't any massive problems.
What are you talking about? They forgot the corner flags.
Yeah, but the stadiums were built.
So we got the crazy new second round group thing.
The whole group way of working, it was terrible.
more of the shocks are people not qualifying. France, Spain, England.
Well, there was the Dutch team getting with a pool party.
Brazil suddenly being a really dirty team.
Scotland drawing with Brazil. That wouldn't quite been expected.
Well, Scotland, I mean, they never got beat, did they?
The team at the World Cup who didn't get beat.
For me, probably Holland versus Argentina. Just the way the Dutch played, I'll give that a 10. The Dutch are just perfect.
Because I wanted Holland to win, I kind of never watched much of the final other than the goals. But it actually looked way more entertaining than that. It's just that there weren't any goals in the second half. How worthy were West Germany as champions?
At home, which all gives an advantage.
Just like in 1954, they lost a game and then won the World Cup.
I don't think they were the best team in the tournament. They probably weren't even the second best team in the tournament, to be fair.
Also, I forgot to do my Johnny Rep joke.
What's your Johnny Rep joke?
That his name is obviously short for condom representative.
It really opened up African football to the World Cup. So actually, for that, no matter what house I had played, it was actually massive because it made the rest of the world realise that there's football in that part of the world because it didn't really before then.
And finally, entertainment value. I've got some stats for you here. There were 2.55 goals per game, which is the lowest so far, and only 5 World Cups will go lower. There were 5 0-0s, 6 1-0s, and 2 dead rubbers.
I have just realised that 1978 was probably a lot better.
I can reveal that the score for the 1974 World Cup in West Germany is 6.31.
Oh.
Is that very low?
That puts it 6th in the table.
No.
For the World Cups, below 1958 Sweden and ahead of 1930 Uruguay. It has fallen down on us not liking the second group stage, there being no shocks and not much controversy and hardly any British contribution. That's where it's falling down. But there was a lot in that World Cup to enjoy. But, you know, do you feel disappointed about that, Izzy?
Maybe more realistic about it, I think. There probably were better World Cups.
Well, we've scientifically proven there are at least 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe our scientific method isn't that good.
Maybe I should have gone for 78. The Dutch were better. Argentina, the ticker tape, the controversy, everything.
Before we go, just quickly set up a teaser for next time. I'll give the answer at the start of the next episode. So the Netherlands were the first-time finalists since 1966. But in which World Cup would their next be a first-time finalist? Have a think about that. I'll give the answer at the start of the next episode. Because next time we've got refereeing pedantry, a really confident Scottish squad, toilet roll all over the shop, and maybe a bit of light match fixing as we head to Argentina for the hardest World Cup of all. As the World Cup of World Cups continues, thank you so much to Eddy Brimson for being our guest today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Where can people find you and follow you online?
EddyBrimson.com. And you can find me on the road at a comedy club near you, probably.
Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for listening. If you've enjoyed it, please rate and review, share, shout it from the rooftops, like it. All the things you can do to help us, that'd be really appreciated. Remember, you can email us at worldcupofworldcups@gmail.com and you can support us at ko-fi.com/worldcupofworldcups. Until next time, auf Wiedersehen.
Bye.
Bye.